I want to thank, we got a couple folks that have helped us sponsorship-wise. Thrivent Financial has been a contributor to us here to help make this happen. Green Clocks Films, who's filming us, did a great job last time, helped some promo videos, help us again as well, sponsors us and help us in their pathway. So before I introduce our guest speaker, I got his resume here, and I'm thinking, like, when I see a resume like this, where have I seen that before? And it's the Under Siege films. Remember this? With, you guys seen Under Siege, right? The movies? Steven Seagal? There's always a point in the movie where, he's like the cook, right? He's just, and then the bad guys get some sort of manila envelope of this guy's file. And they're like, who is this guy? And then they open the file up, and he's just black ops and this, that, and everything, right? But he's just a cook. We've got ourselves another Steven Seagal here to speak to you today, right? There he is over there. Let me read you here. Dr. Jeff Thompson, he's an executive advisor and CEO emeritus at Gunderson Health System up in the La Crosse area there. Pediatrician, author, speaker on value-based leadership. I think you presented at the MTV Awards? No, yeah, okay. Experience in leadership is far-reaching. Had led diverse teams, projects, divisions before holding multiple senior executive roles, including 14 years as the CEO in that role up there. Was the staff over thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of patients, and billion dollar plus organization. His long experience as an intensive care pediatrician and senior executive has shown him over and over again how leading from one's values has the power to affect long-term meaningful change. He's been recognized across the country by independent healthcare rating organizations for high-quality patient care. Authored himself a book here, which we have on the tables before you here as well. These are not for the taking, but they are just to look at if you want to pass them around. They are for sale out in the back and things of that nature as well. He's a board-certified pediatric critical care, neonatal and prenatal medicine and pediatrics. He's been caring for patients for over 35 years, almost as long as I've been alive. So he's earned his medical degree from the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine, completed his residency and fellowship at SUNY Upstate Medical University, lives in La Crosse back in the Coulees, near his 3 grown children. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome, Dr. Jeff Thompson.
Thanks. We're good. We're good to go. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming today. It's good fun. I like coming to speak to groups. I've done a couple leading with Powers in Madison and the Eau Claire area. I do a fair amount of speaking now after I stepped down 2 years ago from being the CEO at Gunderson. My goal today, so if you want to just eat and book, I'll just tell you what I'm going to tell you here in 1 second, although I'm pretty embarrassed you're wearing a tie and a sport coat. I mean, I left my sport coat on the chair because they said, no, it's relaxed. So, and I also said, yeah, and everybody will sit in the back just like in church. Okay, so I got a whole table full of gunners in the front row here, so it's a problem. I'm going to try a couple things. One thing I'm going to do is, this is a first ever, never seen before survey. Forbes organization that published the books for me, and Jeff Emmelt, who wrote the foreword, have pushed me to do a little investigation, and that is, we're soon going to have this online, but it got finally developed yesterday. So we printed it up and said, hey, I know some people. I have these good friends in Madison. They'll be happy to fill out this thing. So it's a little survey, talks about you a little bit, your organization a little bit, and at the end it says, do you have any comments on how you change this survey? So during the boring parts of my talk, you can fill this out, or at the end. We'll get done early, and you'll have time to fill it out then. But it would help me out a little bit. The books, you're welcome to get books. The books don't go to me. That's the money is split between Leading with Power and the Leadership Development Fund at the Gunderson Foundation. So thanks for filling out the little survey. I appreciate that. What I really want to talk about is a simple principle that you don't have to sell your soul to be successful, even now. Even in the digital age, even in a competitive age, even working against very biggest competition. This is the same slide, okay? This is the next slide, sorry. This is a strategic plan for an organization responsible for 500,000 lives, 7,000 employees, $1 billion of the community's money. Here's our plan, one page. Oh, did we have some work things behind it? Of course we did. But this is the plan. Here's the key parts of the plan. And often, some of you know of the Gunderson Health System, often I spend several slides bragging about what we accomplished. Once we took this plan, our competition was United Healthcare that was 100 times our size, the Mayo Clinic, which is 10 times our size and far better known. We rose to the top 1% of outcomes in healthcare in the country. Our service scores went from the 25th percentile in the country to the 90th percentile. We developed a workplace so strong that in the town of 55,000, every year we had 25,000 applicants for jobs. 25,000 applicants, that is after the economic, that was in 14, in 15, in 16. That we changed the mindset from a healthcare organization responsible to make money and serve its bottom line to one that says finances are just a tool. It's just a tool. It's only a tool. It's never the goal. Now, did we have to have decent finances to serve the mission? Of course we did. It's an important tool. So the strategic plan says affordability. It says affordability, not make a lot of money. It's not very inspirational to say we're going to be 3.1% for an operating margin next year. This year we were 3%, so let's go get them. Doesn't work for people that have options. 15 years in a row, we had a smaller fee increase than the year before. Since 2003, we're lower than the state average. We went from a high-price provider to a low-price provider. But at the same time that we were dropping that, and the headwinds were a switch from commercial insurance to government insurance, costing us $100 million a year. We updated all of our buildings. We updated all of our technology. We put away more savings in 15 years than the organization had done in the 100 before. Didn't take it out of the community's hide. We take it out of waste's hide. So we said it's a tool. Finance is a tool to accomplish the mission. And growth, it wasn't to get bigger than the next guy. It wasn't going to be bigger than your neighbor. The goal was to use growth as a tool to serve the mission. So we're going to talk about the mission. The mission says we'll distinguish ourselves through excellence, patient care, education, and research. It doesn't say mediocrity. It says excellence. Sorry, I'll make that quiet. The mission, the vision, the values all serve the purpose. You come to work in an organization, before you apply, you get this strategic plan that says, what's the purpose of this organization? The purpose is to improve the health and well-being of our patients and their communities. Inward looking, we're going to grow, we're going to crush the other people. No, outward looking. Outward looking, health and well-being. And by the way, we can give these slides to anybody that wants them. I mean, you're welcome to take notes and write them down. I'm sure I'll say something brilliant. I'm not sure what it'll be, but I'm sure I'll say something brilliant. You can write down anything you want, but we're recording it, and we'll give you the slides. The purpose, so you apply for a job, it doesn't say take over the world and crush everybody. It says improve the health and well-being of patients and our communities. Outward focusing. Our vision is to be nationally recognized. For the national recognition? No. But as a marker is so good. We're going to be so good. You're the head of neurosurgery. You're the head of OBGYN. You're the head of the facilities. Your job is to get so good you're nationally recognized for service, not making the most amount of money, not taking over the world. It's for service. It all hinged on the values. Here's one of the key pieces. It's one of the key pieces. The values apply to everybody, CEO, everybody else in the organization. In healthcare organizations, the doctors have an immense amount of influence and some political power. Huge amount of influence. Has to apply to them. And I'm going to show you an example of what we did to codify that. If these are just on your website, if they're just on the walls, doesn't work. We said we're going to live these values. We're going to live these values and serve that purpose, accomplish that mission. Sounds like a rotten place to work. Super high standards, intense focus on values, money, they don't even care about money. It turns out it wasn't exactly true. What we cared about is the greater good. And we argued that we could find enough value-driven people, despite long years of training and immense debt, administrative people that have options all over the place, nurses that could go anywhere in the country, pharmacists. We said we could find enough people who believe in this mission, who will live these values and work on these strategies. Turns out we did. Turns out we could find those people. We found thousands and thousands of those people, and it worked out. It worked out great. Oh, probably won't do it if it's on mine. Okay. Whether you're building a team of 5 or a company of 5,000, clarity on the why you exist, how you're going to get there, where will you get to when you get there, and the values will be the culture. That's how we're going to treat each other. People say the millennials are a big problem. These millennials, they just won't work hard, these blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, the problem might not be the millennials, might be us. Might be us, because maybe we're aiming at things that they're not so interested in. Being 1% better than your competitor. Really? 1% better than mediocre? Or your mediocre past? How about that? Is that a great goal? That inspire the crowd? Hey, let's get 1%. We're less than average last year. We're going to get 1% better. That's not inspirational. It's lame. Even in some of the more, what you might think, mechanical pieces of it. The lean culture of management. I mean, famous for building cars. How does that apply to healthcare? Well, in lean management, as you move through just learning how to do tools and then a system, it eventually moves to principle-driven improvement. Principle-driven improvement. Not short-term, make money for the next quarter. Not make me look good so you look bad. Principle-driven. Principle-driven. So how do you drive this in a culture? How do you drive in the culture? One of the reasons you do, you write it down. Okay? So you write it down. So this is an important piece. So regardless what organization you're in, running a hotel, running a manufacturing business, you write down intentionality around the culture. You apply for a job, you might be the smartest cardiologist in the country, all these degrees, all this stuff. You come, we send you this. We send you the medical staff compact. We say, hey, here's the deal. We'll promise you all these things, good communication, educational program, competitive salaries, change management, we'll do all that. And you'll promise us you're going to focus on superior patient care, not just showing up, not just imagining because your waiting room's full that you're good. Superior patient care. You're going to treat everybody with respect, everybody with respect. You're going to take ownership and you do change management. So this will be easy. It's easy. You write this stuff down. That's not hard, right? The problem is follow through. So you look in the book. When you look in the book, it talks about some of the major tools to move forward in these things. One's courage, of course. Courage to define, here's what it is. Here's our values. Here's our values. We're going to live those values. If you can't live those values, you'll find some other place that'll fit you. You won't be us. People say, oh, that's a problem. Maybe we'll lose somebody good. Maybe. But I bet we can find stunning people who can do that. And we turned out that bet was right. So here's an example. I'm the CEO. One morning, a guy calls me up, young man, neurosurgeon. Hard to get neurosurgeons in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Small community, they're all trained in big giant places. Their spouses are trained in big giant places. They all want to live in a big giant place. We get him there, we had a good bunch. 3, we had another one. 4th, he could do deep brain stimulation for Parkinson's disease. He could do all these things. He was smart. He was good. His outcomes, we measure outcomes very hard. Outcomes were good. He calls me one morning. He said, Jeff, I might be in trouble. I said, why might you be in trouble? He said, I kind of came back in. I was on call, came back in, and came out of the building, and the security guard was putting a ticket on my car. I said, really? Where's your car parked? Over by the East Building. Oh, right by the East Building, by those bushes? Yeah, by the bushes, yeah, that's right. That's where the fire trucks have to come through, right? Yeah, but if I heard a fire alarm, I'd come out and move my car. I said, I'm not sure that's good enough. Hundreds of people in that, bunch of them in surgery. Yeah, that's probably not good enough. He says, it really ticked me off. I said, well, you know, it doesn't cost you anything, right? I mean, it's just a please park in another place. Yeah, well, I know that, but it really bugged me. Yes? Well, and I kind of hollered at him. Really? What'd you say? Well, I told him he should get a job that's worth something, and I make more money in a week than he does in 5 months. I said, that's a problem. So we had a big silence, awkward silence. And he said, you're not going to fire me over that, are you? And I said, well, what'd you say? Here's a bright, young, very capable, super qualified neurosurgeon. Just tore somebody to shreds for no good reason. What are you going to say? What are you going to say?
All people respect.
He failed. He failed. So what I said to him was, this is a big problem. He says, I put $5 million on the books last year. I said, that's true. I know you did that. And you're on call every 4th night. And if you go away, your department will be angry at me. It'll be a struggle for patients. We'll lose money in that part of the department. It'll be a big problem. But here's the deal. If you continue on this behavior, you're going to destroy some nurse at 7:20 in the morning in the ICU, and for 11 and a half hours, she's not going to be able to take care of patients as well as she could have. That's a big problem. You're going to destroy the anesthesiologist, who needs to be absolutely sharp because the next patient's going to fall apart on him. And if he's not sharp, the patient could die. And you know what it turns out? We don't need any of that. So if you will commit, apologize to that man, send a note to his supervisor, because now everybody in the organization's heard about this, and agree that you're going to treat everybody with respect, and we'll help you. We got special coaches, we got all this stuff, we'll help you. If you agree to that, man, you can have a long, super career here. If you can't agree to that, might as well put a sign in your yard. There's a huge problem around healthcare in this country. The first step, courage, they don't have the courage to do this. The people that state what they want don't have the discipline to follow through or the durability to put up with the flack. Did the department like me when that guy got fired? Nope. They were pretty angry. They weren't happy. It caused a lot of problems. Manager of the group wasn't happy. But the truth is, long term, we set a tone in the organization that the well-being of everybody was important. Environmental services, kitchen people, the boiler guy, the IT, you can't slaughter anybody, it turns out. And not the docs. You can't tear up the docs or the staff. You're a patient there, you treat the staff badly, we give you an option. Change your ways, or we'll transfer you someplace. No, you don't have a right to treat our patients, our staff, badly. You have to treat them with respect, or we'll send you anywhere, but you can't stay here. One of the keys is leadership, discipline in leadership. This is called the 9-box. It's been used by many organizations. We got it from General Electric. We worked on them to help us get better. The 9-box, often by people, is used to just rate people, how they're doing. So it's one side is potential, one side is performance. So if there's somebody that's very, very capable, and he's he's doing these things very well, and let's say he's not been in his job too long, his performance is medium, but we all believe his potential is high, you can get rated. Well, the advantage of this system in your organization is to do a couple things. First of all, it's to even out the ratings. You can have vice presidents. One vice president's a tough rater, one's an easy rater, other people are all over the map, and the directors talk all the time, and they know, hey, this rating system is just arbitrary. You know, if you just happen to get with that vice president, man, you're screwed. You'll never go anywhere. So what happens is we sit all the vice presidents down. All the vice presidents. We have all the vice presidents. They're all sitting, and you present your people. You present your people, and you say, this guy, he is smart and he's capable. He's on fire. Everything I give him, he does well. And everybody agrees. So we put him at high potential, high performance. And then you start your next guy. He's the same, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody says, he's the same around you. Turns out around the rest of us, he's a troll. He behaves badly, and he never shows up and never gets his work done. Really? I would have never known that, you say. It's an evening. So it's an evening of the evaluations. You get a broader view. Here's the other piece that's even more valuable. And that is, after we go through this, we talk not just about the facts and figures. We talk about how they interact. We're back to the values of the organization. And then I turn to the vice presidents and say, here's the deal. Although his vice president is primarily responsible, you're all responsible. You're all responsible to help him get higher on his performance, farther to the left on his potential, to get as far as he can go. Not just your job, every interaction. Of course, you're going to see him more often, but every interaction for all of you is to improve the well-being of the individuals. So we're all responsible. So again, rather than you cloister down in your little group, and I'm going to get my little group, it's outward looking. Even in departments, it's outward looking in the organization. I'm responsible for your success. So it's the difference between just holding people accountable, which is all backward looking. Start thinking about that. If I'm a good manager, I hold people accountable. All right, so you got a little clipboard, you're making little check marks, and you're all looking backwards. As opposed to being responsible for their success. That's looking forward. Now, there's got to be a balance. There's always some balance. But this system ties into our theme of outward looking and improvement. If you want your whole organization to take care of your customers, well, they have to be taken care of well. This is from Maureen Bizignano, who is the CEO of the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. The theme is, you can't scream and holler at your people to treat the customers and the rest of the staff in a certain way if that's not how they're treated. Now, it makes a lot of sense, but there's an awful lot of people that don't behave this way. Awful lot of leaders that don't behave this way. A lot of people who stick with the lines and boxes. Okay, you got a vice president, you're a director, you got the people you're responsible for, you got people under you, they're responsible for some people. But that's remarkably different than real life. Real life is a matter of influence. You know that person is not just responsible for the direct reports underneath him or her, but can influence a lot of people. If that person's a star, he's bright, he's careful, he's respectful, he builds other people, then it spreads out. It's a good thing. But if that person is a shadow, if that person is a problem, it's more than just the two people underneath him that are the problem, because they affect people sideways and up and across. Undermanaged seniors. You see it in the book. It's one of the mistakes I talk about in the book. I thought I could fix some senior vice presidents who were smart and capable, had a ton of knowledge. but treated each other badly and treated each other's teammates badly. They would hunt down the other's directors and slaughter them at meetings. I thought I could fix them. So they'd come and sit with Dad every week, and I'd give them a talk and try and work things out. Completely failed. Never made it anywhere. Eventually both had to leave the organization because they couldn't live with the values. Were we better off? Did we lose some brain power? We did. But in the overall scheme of making our organization work, it made a big difference. So if you put it all together, this is what it looks like in a big piece. So you need the courage to live the mission, vision, and values, that clear strategic plan, and a compact. So that was the baseline. That gets you so you can have a safe, reliable organization that can deliver on your promises. Fiscal discipline. I didn't say we ignored finances. We had a great deal of fiscal discipline, but it was a tool, again. And then to go from good to great, broader transparency, connecting. In the book, you'll see I talk about reverence, and I have a little piece coming up. Reverence of the staff. Well, for those of you from a faith-based background, reverence has some particular terms. But I used it very intentionally to say it is much different than the transactional approach that we often get in human resources. The first thing I did after a very bloody changeover between the last CEO and me, a whole bunch of people wanted an internal person, that was me. A whole bunch of people wanted an outside person, any outside person. Battle. Eventually I end up in after this very bloody battle. So the first thing I do is hire a vice president of HR from the outside without an interview. Why did I hire her? I'd known her for 25 years, and I knew that she was a people builder. Not a rules police. That she was about making people better, not just holding them accountable. When I speak to big groups of CEOs, they often get stuffed up on this. Say, well, sounds like you're kind of going off. Give me a practical example. I said, okay, here's a practical example. What'd you do in 2008 and 9? What'd you do in 2008 and 9? 2008 and 9, everything went in the toilet financially for the vast majority of us. Huge hits. Everybody was struggling. What do? Who takes the hit? Who takes the hit in your organization? That'll let you know. So in healthcare, what happened? In healthcare, well, a whole bunch of places said, well, we're just going to fire the last 500 people we hired. That'll be a good thing. Or we'll fire a bunch of frontline people. We don't need those. Do we need frontline? I don't know what they do. We'll just fire those guys. That happened all the time. Or they'll say, you know what? We lose money on behavioral health, psychiatric issues. Let's just get rid of that program. Really? As if all those people aren't going to still have those problems? Or they get rid of their education program. Short-term thinking. I mean, who's going to take care of the next generation of patients? Those are easy, quick fixes. We didn't do that. I didn't say to the staff I can never have a layoff, but I said our commitment to our values and treating everyone with respect means that is not what we're going to do first. So we're going to do a whole lot of other things. Now, my vice presidents, who had been with me, most of them I had picked, they said, well, Jeff, this might be the time. This might be the time we're going to have layoffs. I mean, this is so deep, so tight, we just might have to have layoffs. I said, well, we might. But when I look around this table, I see all you make a whole lot of money compared to the people in the front row. So I only have to get rid of a few you for dozens and dozens of them. So if we're going to have layoffs, they're going to start in the front row. It's going to start at this table. They came up with other ideas, it turned out. It wasn't easy. No, I'm not saying any of this is easy. It's not even complex, but it is hard. It is hard. It's hard to stay with it through those really hard times. It's easy to say the staff is our greatest asset, blah, 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 when your margins are good and everything's fat and happy. But when it's hitting the fan, that's the difference between treating it with respect, follow the rules, follow HR rules, and reverence. Reverence means they are held up and supported even when things are tough. So that's what it takes. And then we were able to move ahead. We got a lot of staff ownership. Book comes out early summer. I'm at book signing at Gunderson. Hundreds of people show up, want me to sign the book for them. Frontline staff, many, said, well, Dr. Thompson, it's lovely that you wrote this book. I can't wait to read it. I don't read many books, but I'll read your book. And by the way, we know you had our back in 2008-9, and we've had yours ever since. These are people making $18,000 a year, and they're taking care of me. That's staff ownership. And maybe you can imagine that the neurosurgeon that stays and believes in the place and is making, $400,000 a year, well, they'll feel bought into the organization. Making $18,000 a year, and you still bleed for the organization, that's a big deal. So that's not hard data. That's not hard data, but it's pretty impactful data. So that's why I wrote the book, to try and organize those thoughts. And I organized it into a set of descriptions about choices, and the choices have to do with first yourself, then the people around you, and then farther out into the organization and the community. I think courage is a fundamental baseline piece of it. You can't get there without that. It's like in the economic downturn. Who took the beating? Who took the beating? I didn't want the staff. I took the beating. I went to the board and said, here's the deal. I know I promised you 3% operating margin for 2008. Not going to get it. Not going to get it. I would have said you can take away my bonus, but I eliminated executive bonuses right after I became the CEO. I said we're not going to have a bonus system unless everybody in the organization has a bonus. Again, what's your values? So I took the beating. Shortly hereafter, the fastest growing organization in the community, it's called Logistics Health Incorporated. A high-tech company helps get military people ready to go. He had taken this, Don Weber, taken this from a couple million to now $120, $150 million organization. It was growing great. The problem? The investors, the initial investors who had put tens of millions of dollars into this organization wanted their money out. 5 years and out. They were disciplined investors, 5 years and out. And he had talked to the richest people in town, some other businesses, some other folks. Nobody wanted to put money into it. He had outside suitors, but they were all going to move the organization out of town. So in a town of La Crosse, to have a business with 800, 900 jobs, all high-tech jobs, all rapidly increasing, this is a big deal. So they came to us and said, could you do anything? So what the anything would have meant was, for the first time in the history of the organization, we would have spent money on a private equity venture. We'd have taken 20% of our savings and put it into this company to try and keep them in town for the good of the community. We didn't say no. We said, we'll look at it. It was an act of courage to even look at it. We did a whole lot of discipline in doing our predictions on high side, low side, all these kinds of things. And in 10 weeks, we took 20% of our savings. We invested in this company. We kept it in town. We thought we were going to have to keep it there for years. We only 16 months. We found a buyer to keep it in town. It has since grown from 8,000 to 2,000 high-paying jobs. The Webers have become the major philanthropists for rebuilding the downtown of La Crosse. And the community believed that we were there not for our own well-being, but for the health and well-being of the community. Did I get criticism? Oh yeah, I got pounded. About a third of the business community got wild and said, you shouldn't even have savings, or you shouldn't be using it that, it's too risky. I just disagreed. I talked enough of our board into disagreeing. So we ended up holding it for 16 months. We saved the company, keeping it in town, and we made an embarrassing amount of money. We made a lot of money. Doing the right thing. And that's going to be a theme in this whole thing. Remember, I gave all those financial statistics that you've long since forgotten, but in the beginning. But all this values-driven, all this discipline with staff, all this discipline in the community, we put away savings. When we built, after the economic downturn, we built a replacement hospital that CEOs had kicked down the road for 2 generations, and we had old, crappy buildings. We finally said we're going to do this because we thought we could save the community a lot of money. People thought that was crazy as well. Even crazier, in the midst of that, the other major competitor in town, who I won't mention their name, but it was the Mayo Clinic, decided to stop doing inpatient psychiatric care. It's expensive, they're losing money. They just stopped. So we said, this is not good. So after we committed to the largest building project in the history of western Wisconsin, I came back to the board and said, we have to build an inpatient psychiatric hospital. Our building's old and crappy. It doesn't take good care of patients. It's bad for staff, and the other people are getting out of it, and our community needs this. So just suck it up and do this. They whined and moaned and flopped around a bunch, but I conned them into that too. And you know, while we're doing that, after building that psychiatric building, every time you build a building, you have an open house, people come through and say, now there you go, raising the cost of healthcare. Every time, except that one time. 2,000 people came through, and not a single one said that to me. They said, you know, my mom, my uncle, my sister, my brother, my kid, all those kinds of things. So it was rewarded because when we were in the middle of building the replacement hospital. La Crosse had never had more than $2 million donors for any project in the history of the community. For that, right after the economic downturn, we had 14 million or more donors for the new hospital because they believed we were there for the health and well-being of the community. So you can find people. You can find people. You have to have the discipline to follow through. Without discipline, your courage doesn't go anywhere, and it doesn't build confidence. You just stand up and scream and holler. You have to be able to follow. You have to be able to follow. You have to be able to follow through. I'm repeating this. I always put this in because I want you to remember this. Many of you are mid to upper level leaders in your organization. Undermanaged leadership has such a devastating effect on organizations. It sucks the soul out of the people that say. It encourages people to leave. It is a big problem. The CEO can have a giant negative or positive influence, but so can a vice president, so can a director. It is beyond just the direct reports line. None of these happen without a fair amount of durability. You have to stay with it. In the book is one of the early stories. Judy Faulkner put her story in there about Epic, about the struggles early on, the pressure to deviate off to make some quick money to keep the books rolling, but it would have slowed down where to go, to manage early criticism or late criticism, or or being pounded both internally and externally, like the LHI deal. It was both of that. So it's a package. It's a package to hold up those values. So I go back to the values. And you say, wow, that's mushy stuff. That isn't the quarterly report. Remember, my quarterly and annual reports were the best they'd ever been in 120 years. And I didn't make them the focus. I made the values the focus. I said, we're going to pull on the oars and accomplish these things. Did we pay attention to it? Of course. And did we pay attention to costs? And yeah, we did a lot of those things. But the goal was never cut these costs so we can get a little more money in our pocket. It was cut these costs because there are people in our region who are making a choice today between food, medicines, and heat. Almost every day. In Dane County as well. The theme is that regardless of the business, and so I'm talking a lot about healthcare. You say, what about for-profit business? Read the book. I have a number of for-profit stories, and there are people building businesses and made those right choices as leaders. A big manufacturer who made beds. Had an automatic feature. You push this button, the bed drops to the floor, which is the safest thing. Nurse could walk away and do things called walk away down. It was really great. It was really great. Except, crushed a kid, killed a kid. So the senior members of that team got together and said, hey, we got thousands, hundreds of thousands of these beds out. It was just an accident. They said, yeah, it probably was. Probably was an accident. Then another kid gets killed. And then they meet again. He said, what do you think? The CFO says, hey, just chance accident. The insurance guy says, no, statistically, it's just really rare. Marketing guy says, we have the market share. We are running with this. This is great. And the CEO, he said, we're getting rid of it in every bed in the country that we own. We will never kill another kid with our thing. The marketing guy goes nuts, said, we're going to lose our market share. The CFO says, it could kill the company. He says, we will never kill another kid. That's the baseline. Now, figure out how to make this work. They had advertisers come out and say, those people don't have this anymore. We got it, to try and make ground on it. However, the healthcare community looked at it and said, yeah, we're not going to kill any kids either. So we're not going to buy the other products. And they didn't. And now that patented, market-leading technology is gone from the market because the courage of the CEO said, this is what we're going to do. I don't care if we take a lump. I don't care if we take lumps early on. Just a couple more things I want to talk about. We talk about people. Every organization is pretty hierarchical. Nobody's ego is more important than the well-being of the patient, staff, or the customer. You try and live that, it really sets a tone in your culture. Healthcare, education, universities, you live that. You say the ego is not most important, the well-being of the patient, back to your mission, that's more important. And you as a leader, you have to speak up. Lincoln has a favorite thing that inaction is an action. What you tolerate, you support. You sit around a meeting, and somebody slaughters another person across the table, and you just sit there, you're part of it. You're part of it. If you tolerate it, you're supporting it. That's hard to live up to. That is really hard to live up to. So that's their business. But if we're really going to lead, that's the kind of hard things it takes. I already mentioned this, holding people accountable is looking backwards. Spent a bunch of time on that already. Here's one that it's most difficult the farther up you are in a chain. I always thought this, but then when I became a CEO, it became even clearer that the farther you distance people, the less they hear when you talk, the less they believe when you make pleas to them, and the less likely they'll use their creative juices when things are good or stick with you when things are bad. So we eliminated executive bonuses. We eliminated offices for our executives. We have cubes. We had cubes. Probably most importantly, we said, you have to understand what the work is. And as I came up to this, work changes. Every day, 8 to 9 o'clock, vice presidents would go up in pairs and go to a department. If they had 5 departments, every day they would go to a different department for an hour. Talk to the staff, understand what the work is. Oh, I got meetings, I got to start. Yeah, anybody that's schedule's too full, you come to me. I'll make space in your schedule. It was a very important thing. It took this specialness of the senior people away, and it brought them more connected to their staff, so they're more likely to lead and get that. We ignored the chain of command mostly for communication. For me to tell you, and then you tell the senior vice president, tell the vice president tell the executive director tell the director, and the director tell the man. Too many layers, too much noise. We had a dual responsibility in communication. The organization will communicate in writing, we'll put it on the wall, we'll send you an email, and we'll post it online. Your job is to find it one of those places. You can never say, nobody told me. It's in one of those places every time. Every time, it's in one of those places. So it's a dual responsibility. So this isn't all la-la. I mean, this is hard work. You as an employee, you have a lot of responsibilities. Me as an employer, a lot of responsibilities. And you got to be able to measure things. You got to measure. You got to measure. I can go on. I have a bunch more quotes here from the book. Here's what I want to do. I want to have some time for conversation. There's my contact information. There's the websites up there. You can read more stuff from there. The only thing I can't do is stay and chat afterwards. I've done a couple leading with powers. I like to stay and chat with folks afterwards. But I fly to Detroit at 2:30 and speak in Lansing, Michigan this evening at 7, and then tomorrow morning at 8. So I can't stay too much afterwards. But if you have questions, if you have challenges, if there's something you want clarity on, you can ask right now. You can always send me an email. You can go to my website. There's a whole bunch of other things that I've written on the website. For those of you that don't like hard books, the audio book's available as well. So you can listen to me and put you to sleep every night. That'd be great.
You said it.
People do that.
You got any questions? We need a microphone question here.
Yes.
Jeff, one of the questions I had, you talked about the importance of tracking, and you talked about when you had your executives come to Dad, we'll have a talk. How do you get that tone down to all the other levels when you want that feeling all the way down the chain?
Right. So his question was, what about connecting all the way through the chain and having this interaction? And it has to start wherever you are in the organization. You have to start right there. Now, as a vice president, I went out and physically had lunches, had talks, and started developing this plan. And by the time I was the CEO, I did several methods. I said no one method's going to connect to people. So every other week, I sent an email called Keeping You Informed. I would take items where people did a great work and explain how that meets our mission. I would say where we fell short and how that affects people. I'd explain big things in the world. I would also have Let's Talks where I go to every part of the organization once a year. I spend 10 minutes on the state of Gunderson, 10 minutes on the state of healthcare, and 40 minutes with an open forum. You can ask me anything you want. You can ask me about parking or finance or quality improvement or why the last vice president left or anything you want in the world. And they would ask. I mean, some people, I'd give this big thing about the state of healthcare in the United States, and somebody would say, I kind of want to park, right next to the building. I said, you mean where the patients park? I said, yeah, that would be good. I said, no, you can't. The patients are going to come first. We can come second. We can walk. It's okay. Or other guy, facilities guy, had, Todd on his shirt. And he said, Dr. Thompson, I've been watching the Spanish debt crisis. And, if they fail, Italy falls. And if Italy falls, it's probably 3 or 4 more in Europe, and then we're really in trouble. How does that affect our pension plan? I said, that is a brilliant question, and I'll turn it over to my CFO, Dara, because I had no idea. It was, you know, you never know what you get. But the key is they know I'm open to it. They could ask me hard things, easy things, hard things, easy things. I would go out to their space. I would answer these questions. We had an online question board that they could have continue with things. I send them notes all the time. We'd put up videos, multiple ways to get the information out there. And then when I make rounds, if I sit next to a billing clerk and ask her about her work in Israel, so we have 150 billing clerks because of the complication in billing and healthcare, which is a mess. I didn't talk to 150, I talked to her. I just talked to her, how's her work, she had the right tools, what frustrated her, blah, blah, blah. Do you think she told the other 150? Of course she did. Dr. Thompson sat down, he talked to me for 20 minutes. It was great, blah, blah, blah. Now when I send an email out to talk about the state of healthcare, all 120 of them read it. And every day I would go out and round. And every day the vice president's round. So you get this constant building of confidence. So then when the economic crisis hit, they didn't all bail ship. They all pulled on the oars. I didn't bail on them. They didn't bail on me. We got through it. Great, actually. The board is a little twitchy. Everybody else, we did fine. Other questions?
I've got one for you, if we don't have everybody else, because I know you got to go. So I'm going to give you a scenario, and I want you to give some advice to this. So let's say you had a company of 30 people.
Yep.
We don't have a CEO as prolific as you, but you got someone who's a good person.
Yeah.
Mission statement and vision.
Yep.
It's tucked away in a manila folder. I mean, it's just business as usual. And I'm a low-level employee, but I got big aspirations for the company. I can see more. It's intimidating to go make these changes you're talking about. What would you tell that person, front desk person, engineer, who sees something greater? What would you do about that?
Well, this is not an infrequent question because it is a problem. You know, our organization become the most widely recognized one for environmental soundness in the country because we showed how you can make money, improve the local economy, and decrease our pollution at the same time. And we make millions, and we do really well, and conventional wisdom says, oh no, it's jobs or the economy, which turns out to be crap. People say, well, if your CEO is not inspired, how do you do that? And I think you have to start on your own. I think you have to start in your own area. And in your own area, you can use the corporate mission and vision and values. You can work up your own areas. If nobody knows those, you can't get a hold of them, then work up your own ones. Use the group meetings to kind of build that forward, how we're going to treat each other. Steal everything you can out of this and other things you read, and just use it as a baseline and start working on it. And you can work in small groups and start getting progress. And then you're going to see. So if this department and that department start moving in that way, and this one sees it and they're moving that way, and you're the CEO, you have if your ego is tiny, and you're scared that they're doing something good and you crush them, then that's a pretty good message to the rest of the people. If you say, good grief, that's the model I want replicated, please come and talk to that department, that department, how you got that going. This is terrific. Thanks for doing that. Now you're in the right organization. So you can get started at a lower level, and you can make your environment consistently better. I think that's important. Don't feel hopeless. On the other hand, there are some organizations that you just can't fix from the bottom. It's too terrible. And I would say don't waste your life doing that. There's lots of good people. There's lots of good organizations out there.
So for the sake of your time, let's give a round of applause for our guest speaker, Dr. Jeff Thompson.